تهیه و تنظیم در استودیو بیزرایز.
Growing up in the 80s and early 90s in the Soviet Union era, that is a true statement. So you learn and you get programmed with these things from a young age, and then unfortunately it becomes this cancerous thought for the rest of your life. So just like the first point, you should be able to look at your situation and unemotionally evaluate that you are not where you want to be financially, yet you should still be able to wake up the next morning and instantly identify as rich. Instantly identify and embody the characters and the mindset and the trait of the version of you that is financially abundant. When you change your identity, you change your life. One of the big issues why people do not change their identity or their money beliefs is because they believe that money is scarce, when quite frankly, it's not. When you believe money is scarce, you try to hoard it, and the issue is when you try to pull something in by force, it just pushes it away. Instead of trying to pull in money by force, instead you must attract it. You've been taught your entire life, money is this very scarce item, so you have to be very careful around it and all this stuff, when unequivocally that's not true. All you need to do is look at the money printing they've been doing the past couple years. And by the way, past few years have been exaggerated. It's still been going on for 100 years now. I say this all the time, but look at the inception of the Federal Reserve. Understand where does money come from. That $100 bill that you're holding, who created that? Was it the government? Because it wasn't the government, but look into it. So we live in this world where you've got private investors that own the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve then gets to print money that the government borrows. And then the best part is a lot of that flows to the banks. So you've got this funny money that's backed by nothing. And the best part is then it gets sent to the banks where they use something called fractional reserve banking, which means they only need to hold a reserve. A tiny fraction of those funds need to be held in reserve. So then they can take that funny money and multiply it many, many times over. The reason I say all this to you is to prove that money is not scarce, because they print it and it's backed by nothing. It's valueless. Only value is the perception, the mental perception that you've put around it. So when you start to realize the world's monetary system as we know it, then it becomes very easy to understand that money is not scarce. Money is abundant and they have proven that it's infinite. So what you need to do is hate the game or play the game. Make a bunch of this money, this fake fiat currency, and then go put it into tangible, real assets. If you look at it, quite frankly, the world's monetary system is kind of like, imagine a parallel universe, and all of the elites and leaders in the parallel universe collected all the sand in the world. And the sand is backed by nothing. You can't really do anything with the sand. The sand doesn't have too much use, but they convinced all of the little peasants that one little grain of sand is worth a lot. And the entire economy ran on these little grains of sand. Even though they're kind of useless, you can't really do much with them. All it is just the belief that that little grain of sand is worth something or can buy you something. But what happens when the curtain falls, the show is over, and people realize the sand is worthless? They've been lied to this entire time. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the world's financial system in the next 5, 10, 15 years. Which is why, if you know how to do things right over the next decade or so, you can collect all of this funny money and then buy real, tangible things with it. Things that have actual value to them. So that's the next reason you're poor, is because you have not educated yourself on what is money, where has it come from, the monetary system as we know it. And unfortunately, the byproduct to that is you have this anxiety about money. You think that money is scarce, when quite frankly, it's not. Now, in this world, there are the people who create and those that consume. And the people who consume things pay the ones and make the ones who create things very rich. So you need to understand that you are always paying someone in one of two currencies, attention or money. And ultimately, attention and money both usually end up to the person who has managed to get that from you, eventually making money in some form or fashion. You need to understand that you are poor because you do not create anything. You simply consume. And you will not become rich in life until you create something that the market consumes, whether that be a service, whether that be a product, whatever it may be. Create value and others will consume it in return for money. And this also goes for sort of your online footprint, this idea of creator versus consumer. You need to understand that you are consumers on YouTube, you are consumers on TikTok. And by the way, there's no issues with that. Bear in mind, when I have 10 or 15 minutes to eat a nice meal, I usually sit down and I watch a YouTube video. So there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. But the issue is most of you guys are spending 3-4 hours a day on TikTok over consuming. So if it is applicable to your goals, for some of you watching this, you may not actually want to be entrepreneurs. I know some of you watching this, you work in great jobs, and having a social media presence and creating online doesn't really, contribute to you working up through the company and eventually becoming, let's say, the COO or the CMO at your company. So if that's the case, delete all of these stupid apps off your phone delete Instagram, delete TikTok. They have zero use to you. But if it's applicable to what you want to do in life, then start creating alongside consuming. So just remember, the last reason that you are poor is because you are way too far into the consumer field rather than being a creator, either digitally or in terms of what you're actually creating with products or services. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to end off this video by saying that I love you guys, and I will be intense with you sometimes, because I have noticed, like on YouTube, sometimes it just does feel like a little too airy-fairy, like a lot of these podcasts, a lot of these like YouTube channels, they just want to make you feel better. I just want to talk to you guys frankly. Now this video was good and I wanted to light a fire inside you, but now you need to actually lock in this knowledge by watching the 7 millionaire skills I learned at the age of 18. These two videos together, you'll be unstoppable. Love you guys. Catch you next time.
تهیه و تنظیم در استدیو بیزرایز.